The biggest twist of this book is the fact that not only is Naven married, that's his wife. How's it going, YouTube lovers? This is the Eabs here. Welcome back to another video. Today I'm here for another edition of Eabs Book Club because today I am finally talking about Epithet Erased, Prison of Plastic, the novelized sequel to this series Epithet Erased. I am very excited to check this out. I loved the animated series, and while it's a shame we're really not going to be getting any more animated continuations, it would just be like little bits and pieces made for marketing or just little fun kind of things. I am very happy that the story gets to continue, at least in some form. And of course, we get Molly back, which I'm very happy about. She was such a great character in the show. And we get to learn a lot more in this about her, let's say, messy family. That puts it lightly. But yeah, so this book was written by Brendan Blaber, the original creator of the Epithet Erased series. And it also has illustrations by the artist Bo Hello. We got a little bit of a preview of this artwork when I reacted to the audiobook preview that they uploaded to YouTube, but they have more of these illustrations scattered throughout the book, and it just looks fantastic. The artwork really pops and comes to life. It's intermittently throughout the book to give you an idea of what is being described, what the characters are doing, what they look like, what the situation is, and it really adds to the book. I love the illustrations that are in here. But like I mentioned, I already reacted to the audiobook preview, which included the 4 prologues and the first 2 chapters. So this book club video is just going to be reviewing from chapter 3 onwards. And then from chapter 3 all the way to the end of the book and talking about some of my thoughts at the end. So this is going to be a lot of fun. And of course, I will start this by saying that there's going to be a spoiler warning, of course, because I'll be talking about the events of the book and also talking about a little bit about some of the stuff that was in the show, and also an opinion warning, because I am talking about my own personal opinions about this book and what I think about it. And I do have a few critiques to give here and there. So this is going to be a lot of fun. Let's go ahead and jump into this review and start talking about this story. So there we are, starting off chapter 3 with everyone who's in the toy store being sucked into Lorelai's augment epithet created bubble world that she has. It's a world like entirely made of candy. So Molly, Phoenica, Trixie, and Rick all wake up there, and Rick thinks he's died, which is kind of valid. You're completely unconscious on a beach, and then you wake up in a candy world. It's reasonable to think that you've died and gone to heaven or something like that. But Lorelai actually spots them pretty quickly because she's like using any reflection to spy on them, like a kind of a witch trope going on there. So to try to get them to leave, she's like casting spells at them to try to kick them out, and they keep coming back. So she casts more of her spells at them and ends up transforming all of them. Rick is turned into a newt. Feeny and Trixie are turned into little fairies, kind of like a angel on your shoulder, devil on your shoulder kind of design. And Molly is just turned into a little brown puffball. Molly's able to use her dumb epithet powers to make herself look normal and human again, but it's a lot for her to just be able to do that, so she's unable to do it for the rest of her friends. So basically, she's the only human walking around in this party, while the 2 fairy girls are like flying around her, and Rick just like sits in her hair or on her shoulder, that kind of thing. So Molly says that she actually spots smoke in the far distance, and they decide that they need to head that way to find Lorelai. And along the way, they encounter a number of obstacles, because again, this is a world that her older sister has created with her very imaginative powers. First, there is a gate that is actually unlocked by a spelling bee, which is run by an actual bee. Phoenica actually takes charge in this particular obstacle, because like I said in my reaction to the audiobook preview, she is a total ditz, especially socially, a complete dummy. But academically, she's pretty brilliant. She's got like a near photographic memory. She's actually super smart when it comes to school-related things and stuff like that. So not even Lorelai cheating and like using a magic dictionary to try to help the bee win is able to defeat Phoenica in this challenge. So they're able to keep going on past the hexagon. Was it called the hexagon? Yeah, hexagon. Past the hexagon gate, which, I thought that was pretty cool. Give a little spotlight to Phoenica there. The second obstacle is actually that they get to gives a chance for Trixie to shine, because it's like a bunch of spooky Halloween kind of vibe, like a PG horror movie kind of thing, where it's like, oh, scary, you see it on a Disney Channel original movie. They end up like scaring off ghosts, and they face down a murder of crows who are controlled by a scarecrow called the Scaregrow. Like I said, though, it's Trixie's chance to shine. And what's interesting about this here is that it turns out Trixie might not actually be a Mundy. We learned through this that she's been able to see and talk to ghosts in the real world for years at this point. She's convinced that she has an epithet. She just doesn't know what the word is yet. She's like many kids, is like flip through a dictionary, reading off words just to see if anything happens to trigger her powers to figure out what it is. But she can see and talk to ghosts that other people are unable to. So seems that the Neo Trio actually has 2 inscribed in its ranks there, which is pretty interesting. But because of this, actually, she could spy that one of the crows there is a ghost crow. And that ghost crow gives her the advice like, oh, use the you've been picking up all this candy as you've been going on this trip, use the candy corn. And so she uses the candy corn to basically barter with the crows to get their loyalty over the Scaregrow's loyalty. And basically says like, hey, if you fly us out of here and take us to the witch's hovel, you'll get these candy corn that I have, and I'll tell you where there's more. And they heartily accept it, and they all fly the group off to where Lorelai's home base is. But I will say, like I said, I really love the fact that Molly's 2 closest friends get a true spotlight for each of these challenges, with the spelling bee giving Phoenica the chance to show that, yes, she is socially inept, but she is quite brilliant still. She is very smart, just, kind of like Big Bang Theory character smart. She's, not good with social stuff, but she is sharp as a tack when it comes to academics. And then with Trixie's challenge, it gives a chance to say, hey, Molly's not the only epithet user here with the Neo Trio, and also, it's a bunch of spooky, weird stuff. It's perfect for this crazy little 12-year-old. And again, I love that, but from this point in the story on, that the 2 girls basically function as one entity. This is like, those 2 obstacles are the only time that they really get a chance to show off their uniqueness, which is a shame. I really like these characters. So the fact that pretty much anything after this, if Feeny does something, Trixie also does it, and vice versa, it feels a little disappointing, because these characters are unique, and yes, they have like their own way that they talk about things, but when it comes to like actual like plot driving actions, these 2 are basically just the same entity for the rest of the book after they get through these obstacles, which I said, I'm not a fan of that. I really wish that they got a chance to use what they're able to do a little bit more, because it seems like the way that they're introduced to, like, oh, they're able to get through this obstacle, they can use this again later. No, they don't. It's just to get through those obstacles, never really used again. I'm like, okay, well, I'm not a fan of that. I will just say that's the first issue I have with this book, is that. But overall, I love the fact, like I said, that they give the spotlights to them. It adds to the characters who I already really enjoyed listening to the audiobook preview. I think Trixie is still absolutely freaking brilliant. I think that there's a wonderful hilarity to all those interactions. But we've just been following Molly and her friends this whole time. It's just been Molly, Feeny, Trixie, and Rick, who's just along for the ride as a newt, still trying to get friendships made with them for his soulmates epithet. But there are 3 other people that are important to this story who are still, technically there's 4 more people in this bubble, but one of them's not important right now. But there are 3 other people important to this story in this bubble with them. Lorelai herself, Giovanni, who is still in stone gargoyle form, and the Neo Trio's teacher, Naven, who has also been turned into a fairy. So let's look at what's been going on in the witch's hovel while this, Lord of the Rings-esque quest has been going across the land of candy. Still completely unaware that Giovanni's name is not actually Vincent Murder, because that's the only way he's introduced himself so far in front of her, Lorelai is ready to undergo whatever kind of minion exam her new crush has lined up for her. And what is this grand plan that Giovanni has to give her a test to see if she's worthy to be a minion in his team? A baking challenge. Yes, I am serious about that, and so is Giovanni. And he's even recruited Naven, who is technically supposed to be Lorelai's hostage at this point, to be a judge on baking cookies. Yeah, we're just going Food Network for this one. He just has one major rule for her as she takes on these challenges. She's not allowed to use her magic to make the cookies. She can have, the fridge that gives her whatever ingredients she needs, or then the drawers that give her whatever tools and utensils that she needs, but she can't use magic to actually make the cookies. She needs to mix the ingredients, separate it out, scoop it out, and bake it, and decorate it, all manually, which is actually incredibly difficult for her. She's gotten so used, especially over the past 2 years, using her augment epithet, that she really just doesn't know how to function without it. She's been using it as a crutch basically this whole time. She only relies on it, and because of that, she straight up burns the first batch of cookies, and so Giovanni has to give her a second shot at finishing them. And it does go better. It's not great. They're still a bit crunchy, but Giovanni is fine with that. He's weird. It's Giovanni. We all know and love him. But he actually has a second challenge for her, which is an even more difficult and technically challenging baking challenge with more complexity in the cookie. And it's like, okay, you did great in the first round. Here's your second round. You have 1 hour, go. And that's not a lot of time to bake cookies, but it's even less time considering the fact that the Neo Trio and Rick have arrived now at her hovel, which means that she is completely out of time from keeping them away from everything. Honestly, it's such an interesting way to have the story's B plot, because it's basically like the A plot is following Molly, and then the B plot is following Lorelai. And it's really interesting because it's like, oh yeah, we have this, again, like I said, Lord of the Rings-esque quests across the distant land to go save, a hostage. That's the A plot. What could the B plot possibly be? A baking championship. It's really weird, but also very fitting for Giovanni. I honestly wouldn't expect anything super different from him at this point, just from everything else that we've already seen from him, and how he treats his minions and how he views being evil and everything like that. And he already mentioned that he has some kind of evil plan cookie up that requires baking, and nobody is baking, so he's trying to see if Lorelai can be the person to fill in that skill gap for the team, which is pretty cool. And also these chapters honestly get a chance to show more of who Lorelai really is. She's actually a pretty lonely person, and I want to be abundantly clear here, and this does not excuse anything that she has done to Molly. It really doesn't, especially later in the book. It gets worse. Trust me. But especially not even like stuff that's later in the book, stuff the book mentions that happened like before, like, oh, this is just something that happened, because remember, Naven had said, like, oh, he tried to call Child Protective Services at one point, and they're like, oh, she can make food. She's fine. But both Lorelai and that useless Father Martin failed to mention the fact that any food that Lorelai is able to make with her epithet will disappear before it reaches a stomach, which means it doesn't actually provide any nutritional benefit, which means that poor Molly is still completely emaciated and starving. I hate Martin Blindeff so much. That being said, again, I want to make that clear. Nothing I'm saying about Lorelai right now undoes all the stuff that she's doing to Molly. But it does make her a lot more interesting. And she's actually finding some joy. Again, she's a very lonely person. She's finding actual joy doing stuff with Giovanni because he takes so much interest in what her powers are able to do and the imagination that she has, and they're able to bounce ideas off of each other. She's having a genuinely great time for the first time in a long time, which is good. But like I said, it's not that does not excuse anything that she has done and is going to do. But also, before I move on to this next part of the story here, it is important to note that when she burned those first batch of cookies, a fire alarm goes off. And Naven even points out, why would a fantasy witch's hovel have a fire alarm? And Lorelai just kind of awkwardly says, well, everywhere should have a working fire alarm. Keep that in mind. That is going to be very important to the story later in this book. So like I said, Molly and her friends are dropped off at the witch's hovel. She calls herself, by the way, the Harridan, spelled Hare at the beginning, because she has a whole rabbit motif that she's going with. Even her hovel is like a big carrot cake, because everything in there is made of some kind of sweet or dessert. So Molly and her friends get dropped off by the crows, and Lorelai immediately sees them and like seals off the front door. But it's clear that she's distracted. She's not giving it her all in trying to stop them, because she's focusing so much on getting the baking challenge done, which means that there are holes in her defenses, and eventually the crew is able to get inside. They like go down through like the oven's chimney basically, and they reunite with Naven. And when they're in the kitchen though, Molly actually notices it's a recreation of the kitchen that the Blind Deafs used to have at their old home. Like the fire alarms, that is very important to note. I am just saying. So Phoenica and Trixie try their best to like secretly sabotage Lorelai's work, but they're not really doing much. They're tiny little fairies. There's not much going on. And Molly decides that she is going to go face Lorelai alone and apologize to her. Basically say, I'm sorry for getting mad at you. Naven tries his best to say, Molly, you have nothing to apologize for. You are the victim here. You are the one being bullied. It's good that you stood up for yourself. And he actually says, and I quote, it's not magic, Molly. Communication is a two-way street, and it is powerful, but I don't want you thinking that you can talk your way through a brick wall. It's honestly such a great quote. Naven's character really grows on me here. But unfortunately, Molly still thinks that she needs to be the one who is, trying to make everyone around her happy. 12-year-old girl, by the way. So she dismisses his advice, and she just goes to find Lorelai. She does find her, and she's basically cheating at her baking challenge. The Harridan's frozen Giovanni, basically petrified him as an actual gargoyle statue, so that way she can, get stuff done with a little bit more time if needed. It also maybe use a little bit of magic cheating if she feels like she needs it. So yeah, she's cheating. But Molly moves forward with her plan. She starts apologizing for getting mad. She goes on to compliment like the world that Lorelai has made and all the attention to detail she has and everything. And for a moment, just for a little moment, it feels like Molly is actually getting through to her sister. But then it all comes crashing down. Because Molly says, yes, I would love to play with you again like we used to. I just need to figure out scheduling stuff. We got to change something because I just don't have time. And so Lorelai says, well, I have a solution. Stop going to see your friends and hang out with me. Obviously, Molly pushes back against that. Trixie and Phoenica are like her only friends. Giovanni technically, but he's boss. It's different. But her only actual straight up friends. And Lorelai's saying like, well, I understand that you don't have any free time to do anything. Well, just stop going to your friends and hang out with me. What the heck? So Molly pushes back against this, obviously, because that's a horrible thing to say. But Lorelai is like, oh, well, you don't actually care about me. And she basically drops Molly down a magical dumbwaiter into the basement. So it for just a fraction of a moment, it felt like Molly was getting through to Lorelai, but nope, she wasn't. And Naven tries to comfort Molly, but at this point, Molly just feels defeated. She's practically given up. So she climbs back up to the top of the stairs to see her sister again. And Lorelai just basically forces her to apologize for thing after thing after thing. But the last apology just demands one too many from Molly. And she finally snaps. She goes back to what was going on in the prologues of the book, where she says, hey, you're supposed to do the dishes. I can't make dinner if you don't clean the dishes first. And she goes on to say, like, because of that, like, I had to do the dishes and make dinner and do dishes again after that. I didn't have time for homework. My teachers yelled at me, and I couldn't explain it because I was crying, which just made me cry more. She explained just how emotional and, like, just distraught she was because Lorelai's inability to take responsibility is just making Molly's life horrible. And once again, for a moment, there's a little sliver of Lorelai actually realizing that there's something else going on here, and she can try to fix her relationship with her sister. But once again, she goes right back to her selfish anger, and she tries to cast a spell on Molly. Basically, it's like, oh, you're good. There you go. You're gonna actually, be friends with me now. Just get rid. Basically, try to turn her into a puppet that she could just use as a plaything, based on what the spell is described as, which sounds pretty creepy. But Molly's not concerned. Again, her powers are literally the opposite of Lorelai's and are able to subdue them, undo them, completely negate them. So she just stands there ready to take it because she knows that she is fine because of her power. Who doesn't know that is Rick Shades, who is still just a little newt sitting in her hair this whole time. And so he throws himself basically in front of the bullet and takes it from Molly, which is not good because it actually really hurts him. And his little newt body flops to the floor and he starts dying. Lorelai's about to kill this guy because of that spell, which makes you think, like, if Molly's epithet couldn't undo what Lorelai was doing, what was she about to do to her sister? And again, Lorelai never meant to actually hurt anyone for real. It wasn't intentionally trying to do that, but that doesn't matter. She did hurt someone, and Molly is rightfully furious. She demands that she fix it, and Lorelai casts a thing to undo all of her spells on Rick, which not only heals him, it also undoes his transformation into a newt, and it kicks him out of the bubble. Molly is absolutely done at this point. She just starts bashing her fists up against her sister, screaming at her. Her powers, like, with each hit, are like deleting a part of Lorelai's witch costume until at the end she's just wearing her regular clothes that she was wearing that morning. And then Molly just opens up a portal that goes back to the toy store. And before she leaves, she turns to her sister and says, "I hate you." Honestly, valid. Lorelai, I already knew she was a really crappy sister. She's worse now. Like, that was horrible. Poor Molly, again, a 12-year-old girl, has been through so much stress. And now her older sister, 17-year-old sister, almost an adult, has the gall to basically demand Molly give up her friends just so that she can have her sister all to herself. Give up the small fraction of a life that Molly has managed to carve for herself just to have her sister for herself. I'm honestly angry for Molly at this point. This is crap. It's ridiculous. And I do have to say, I'm really proud of her for making a stand. It feels like the perfect character progression for her from what we saw in the museum arc, where Giovanni was already saying, like, you need to start standing up for yourself. You can't let people walk over you. It's nice to be nice and whatever, but you can't give it to the point where it's self-detrimental. And so that's why I love that she stood up for herself. But even though she, stormed off, left her sister there alone and crying and thinking about what happened, Molly's not done because she left, but her friends are still in there. The bubble's still taking up the store. Naven's basically still a hostage. Giovanni only seems to kind of know what's going on. He's not entirely stupid, but he doesn't know the full picture of what's going on. He just knows that there's been some funky stuff happening. So Molly's not done yet. There's still people in the bubble that need to get out. After making sure that Rick was okay once they're back in the toy store, Molly tells him that she's gonna go in alone this time. She just needs to take care of it, which Rick is visibly sad about because he actually wanted to go with her. He wants to be her friend. But the two do. She says, "Hey, you can help me find a new entry point so that I can find somewhere that's maybe a little bit closer." So they go around the bubble, like trying to get around, because it's going through the walls, like no clipping basically. And they end up in the basement and they find another entrance to go in. And while they're down there, they can't find Molly's dad. So she's like, I guess he's in there too, but he'll be fine. He's done that multiple times before. Lorelai doesn't really care about him. And when the bubble's gone, he'll just end up back in the toy store anyway. But before Molly opens up a new portal, Rick notices a family portrait hanging on the wall, an old blind deaf family portrait. It features Molly, it features her sister, it features her dad, and it features her mother. And this is where the book does confirm a theory that I had when I was watching the show, which is that Mrs. Blind Deaf, I really don't want to butcher her name, so I'm not even going to try. I'm sorry. I'm just going to refer to her as the mother or wife or Mrs. Blind Deaf or whatever, because I don't want to butcher her name. But she died in a house fire. And that is why it's talking about, the fire alarm was a key thing that Lorelai wanted in her world, and the kitchen that she has, the recreation of the old kitchen, the old life that they used to have, that was from the old house, the one that burned down and took their mother with it. And it's also, heavily implied to be the source of Molly's pyrophobia that she has. I knew that they were implying it, but still reading them actually confirming it is brutal, like seriously brutal. It's so much for these kids to have to go through. Again, Lorelai would have been 15, Molly would have been 10 when they lost their mother. That's awful. That's just horrible. And we learn a little bit more about their mother at this point, that she was the polar opposite of her husband. While he's, happy-go-lucky, very impulsive, she was over-organized to a T and stressed 24/7. She genuinely sounds like a person I can relate to. But they basically, the two kept each other in balance, Mr. and Mrs. Blinddeaf. They were like a yin and yang, like neither of them by themselves were really stable, but together they had that balance. But with one gone, it was imbalanced, and their daughters were the ones who suffered for it. But yeah, so we learn a little bit about her mother when Rick sees Molly's family portrait, and Molly's about to go back in and leave Rick there in the basement. But before she leaves, Rick comments that he just thinks that she's cool, which is a foreign concept to Molly. She's never considered herself cool or heard anyone call her cool. And Rick just is honestly saying that he's jealous about the fact that Molly can make friends so easily. And that causes Molly to pause for a moment, because Rick also notes that, oh, yeah, I used to have friends, but not anymore. So Molly asks him what happened. And so this is where we get our actual backstory on Rick Shades. So we know he's from Ocean Country. We already established that, and which makes sense considering he showed up, mostly drowned on a beach. But it turns out in Ocean Country, there's like a supreme leader who is like has like a squid man who has a constant hunger to fight others and gain more power, level up his skills. Not exactly the same, but as a nerd, it did make me think of Galactus from Marvel, considering that Fantastic Four came out, recently, and the newer version's actually really, really good. But basically, what he would do is that there'd be like a harvesting of his own people. When there was someone who was like super powerful, he would harvest them, which basically means he'd bring them into a cell in the Coliseum, and they would fight, and there'd be big gladiator fights, and then he would fight whoever the victor was and all of that in order to gain more XP. He's literally XP farming off of his own subjects. And for Rick, who, remember, his soulmate's epithet makes him more powerful the more friends he has. That's the way that his power scaling works. He had a lot of friends when he was about Molly's age. And because of that, at 12 years old, he was harvested and brought into the Coliseum to fight. And he did. He fought, and it was awful. And over time, some of his friends, because he spent years in there, years and years and years. And over time, his friends on the outside started to forget him, and he started losing his power. He made friends with the other gladiators that were in the Coliseum, but they wouldn't all survive the fights, and so he would lose friends that way too. So unlike a lot of the other opponents that were in there, his ability started dwindling, and he started getting weaker and weaker as time went on. So in one last-ditch effort, basically Rick asked his friends for one more bit of advice. Please give me all of your powers, all of your friendship one more time, and I'm going to try to escape. And that's what he did. He broke out of the Coliseum and he started swimming for the surface, using all of the powers that his friends were giving him. But unfortunately for him, once he got halfway there, all of his friendship threads snapped. His friendships ended all at the same time, and he almost didn't survive getting to the surface. And that's why he ended up, mostly drowned and almost dead when the Neo Trio found him on that beach. He had just escaped, and he was weak because he had lost all of that friendship power. And poor Rick this whole time has thought, my friends gave up on me. That's why I lost all that, because they were no longer friends with me. But Molly's not convinced that that's the thing. She actually has a game theory, to put it in MatPat terms. And she tests it by opening and closing a portal in the bubble to where, Phoenica and Trixie are, who are still friends with Naven. And the status of the portal being open or closed also determined the status of his friendship link with them. And Molly realizes they didn't give up on you. Your epithet has a range. And once he got out of that range, the connection snapped. His friends never gave up on him. They were just too far away. which is honestly such a beautiful moment for this character. And what's even more interesting, because, you know, he lets his guard down quite a bit here because he clearly has a very car salesman personality the whole time. That's all a facade, unsurprisingly. In fact, Rick Shades isn't even in his real name. It is basically a persona he created himself so that when he was fighting his friends in the Coliseum, it would be easier for him to deal with, because he's like, no, I'm not the one fighting them. Rick Shades is the one fighting them. And so he lets that slip by accident, but Molly's like, no. You're not getting away with that. You have to tell me what your real name is now, and we'll be friends. And so basically they reintroduce themselves, and his real name is, I wrote this down because this is a tricky one. His real name is Toidi Gurami. But luckily for my sake, referring to him for the rest of this video, his nickname is Odie. So it is not Rick, it is Odie. And so they reintroduce themselves, and a new friendship bond is formed. And because of that, Odie is now able to use Molly's dumb abilities, so they're able to go into the bubble together. And when they're there, they start trying to, like, okay, we got to get back to the hovel. We got to get Trixie and Finico. We got to stop Lorelei. So they're going back there, but it's really slow progress. They're in like a snowy area, but the snow is, of course, like frozen, like snow cones or ice cream, that kind of thing, just like frozen desserts. But so Rick's like, oh, I'm sorry, Odie, my bad, not Rick. Odie has an idea, and he says, I got this. He goes back to the workshop, and he collects a bunch of just random garbage, I think is the best way to describe it. A lot of stuff that is entirely toxic, and he starts turning it into a potion. Because Molly realizes during this, Odie's power of like being able to do what his friends are able to do, it's not based on what they can actually do. It's based on what he thinks they can do, which is incredibly powerful if you have a friend, if he makes a friendship bond with someone who's very mysterious about their powers. If they make something up, he's going to believe, he believes it with all his heart, he can do that. It's pretty strong, actually. You know, it has a range, it can be broken very easily, so it's got a bit of a glass cannon feel to it. But because Trixie was like, oh, I make potions, even though it was just a bunch of random liquids put together that absolutely should not be inhaled or consumed in any way. Because Trixie's like, hey, I can make powers. Odie is like, well, I can make potions too. You know, you can make potions, I can make potions. And so he makes a speed potion. That way it's like, hey, here you go, Molly. We could just sprint all the way there and they could run like the Flash and get to the hovel. But with that, Molly's like, actually, let's not just do that. I have an idea. So because of that, Molly has a plan on how to finally confront Lorelei and put this all to bed. Honestly, at this point, I would like to formally apologize to all Rick Shades fans and to Odie himself, because I did not trust this guy when we met him. When we met him in the first chapter of the book, I honestly was freaked out by him, just by his physical description, his whole, like I said, car salesman personality, and the fact that he was pretty much desperate to be friends, which we didn't really know what that meant at the time, friends with literal children. You can't blame me for being a little cautious of the guy. And I think, honestly, I blame Mara a bit for that, because I absolutely was fooled by her in episode 1. So when it turns out she was the bad guy at the end of it all, I just completely lost trust in any character that we meet in this world. But he really ended up being like a delightful character in the true heart of this book outside of the Blindif sisters. Like, he's funny, he's actually really, really sweet, and he has a tragic backstory to boot. Some of the best characters have tragic backstories. And also, it's a part of the story that shows like a positive development for Molly as well. She's making more friends. She's more outgoing. Her time with Naven, her time with Giovanni, it's helping her. It's working. She's growing more confident in herself. And so it shows character development for her and introduces us to a really fun character. So again, like I said, apologies to all Rick Shades fans. I was wrong. He is a great character. He is delightful. I now understand why I got so many comments on my reaction video going like, oh, Rick Shades, my beloved. Oh, Rick Shades, he's awesome. I now understand. I get it, and I apologize. But with her new friend by her side, it's time for Molly to reach the end of this story and properly confront Lorelei and put this all to rest, like I said. Back in the hovel, Lorelai is freaking out at this point. She's running out of time. She's panicking, and she straight up threatens Naven, like straight up threatens him with like a finger gun with a glowing magic light on the end of it. Basically, like, if you tell Giovanni anything, I will do it. And he calls her bluff on it, though. He goes, "You'll do what? I don't think you're actually capable of killing someone. At least, not on purpose." Yeah, I think with everything else we've talked about with the backstory for the blind deaf family, I think we can tell where this is going. It's officially brought up later, but I think it's pretty clear where the story's going at this point. But anyway, Lorelai's desperation is getting worse and worse, and it gets even more disastrous and more chaotic for her and more panicky when Giovanni wakes up from his petrification, and she's just like, completely a mess. She needs to get this done. She's going to have to use magic. So she's like, no peeking. And she shoves him into another room and just starts trying to deal with everything. And she even actually finally finds Feeny and Trixie and swats them like flies. And that sends them, spit out of the bubble back to the beginning. So then she starts cheating, using magic because she is out of time. But she didn't pay attention to where she shoved Giovanni. He actually ends up in the basement below the hovel, and down there, he finally comes face to face with Martin Blinddeaf, Molly and Lorelai's father. The worst character, as in the man I want to strangle the most in this series. And Giovanni already knows a little bit about how he's a terrible dad from just talking to, Molly. We talks about how her family is rough and everything like that. So he knows that she's had a rough time, but he gets an even worse impression of him down here. Giovanni goes from oh, I don't think I like this guy from the description to no, I hate you. Because down there, regardless of just also he's dismissive of Molly, which, that's immediately Giovanni's done. That's his bear trap. That's his minion. But he also finds Martin just straight up tearing apart and disassembling what Lori has made to go oh, can I use this for my inventions? and stuff like that. He really is such an idiot. But Giovanni is just disgusted. It's you have so little regard for your daughters and for what your daughters have done. It's horrible. And Giovanni, in the most Giovanni way possible, straight up declares war on Martin Blinddeaf, which I love. And he also issues this threat. As my first act of retribution, tonight I shall steal the most valuable thing from your store. Honestly, I knew right away what Giovanni was talking about, and I'll talk about that when we get to it in the story. But I knew where he was going with this, and I was pretty happy about it. I was like, okay, Giovanni, I know what you mean, and I would like to see you pull it off. So we'll get there when we get there. He's declared war on Martin Blinddeaf and has issued a threat. But after that, Giovanni goes back upstairs because it is time to judge Lorelai's cookies. On the way, he actually meets with Molly, Feeny, and Trixie, who are all back in the bubble now. But desperate to make sure that no one can interfere again, Lorelai, while Giovanni's back is turned, zaps Trixie out of the bubble again. But then the little devil fairy comes crawling back onto Molly's shoulder almost immediately. Not even zapping Trixie again, then also going after Phoenica does anything, because then they both end up back on Molly's shoulder immediately. There appears to be a leak in your bubble, Lorelai. And so the judging begins. And the cookies that Lorelai made are garbage. They're terrible. Then after the deliberation between judges, Giovanni declares Lorelai gets 0 points. She completely failed. Not only with the cookies and everything, but because Giovanni's not stupid. He knows something's been going on. And Naven and Molly and everyone have told Giovanni what's been going on behind his back. The fact that he's been, she's been trying to distract him, and then she's been bullying her sister and her friends in the meantime, and, threatening to kill Naven and all that stuff. And Giovanni's like, no, that's not what I want. He has standards for his minions. They're bad guys, but they're not bad people. There is a difference for Giovanni, and that is a difference that Lorelai is just not getting or refusing to listen to. And so she's just frustrated because she feels like she wasted her time, and Giovanni just doesn't care, thinking back how it's all about her again. And so she snaps. The guy she wanted the approval of called her bad, so she's going to embrace being bad. She summons the s'more dragon that we saw in the prologue and sicks it on our friend group. And she also sets the hovel on fire while she does it. Yeah, great. You know that your sister has pyrophobia and why she has pyrophobia. Yeah, good call, Lorelai. You're definitely that's going to convince Giovanni that you're a swell person. Even though that's not her point right now. She's like, okay, I'll be bad if you say I'm bad. Look at this. I'm a villain now. Evil villain. But not Giovanni's flavor of evil, but just straight up. Like he said to the Bonsai Blasters of Redwood Run, you're not real bad guys. You're just jerks. So Lorelai's embracing being a jerk. But Molly's scared, but she has resolve. She has a plan, and it's been working, and they still need to take care of this bubble. And right after that, Rick joins the rest of them so that all of the group is together. And this is when we learn that's what Molly's plan was. Rick has been staying outside of the bubble the whole time, keeping a portal open so that friendship connection stays strong. And he's just been mixing a potion of teleportation that has Molly as the target. So whenever Trixie or Feeny got zapped, they would just drink the potion and they would be warped right back into the bubble where Molly is. That's exactly what Rick did as well. Sorry, Odie. I'm sorry. I've called him Rick this whole time. I got used to it so much. His real name is Odie. I want to call him Odie. My brain is set on calling him Rick. But Odie also drinks that potion and he appears as well. So the entire group is together. And now there's a dragon to deal with. So we got the whole group. It's going to be Molly and Odie who have to straight up attack it because they're the ones who are able to use the dumb epithet. But Molly is, she's going to be flying around on Giovanni's gargoyle form. She's basically giving her a piggyback ride to fly up there. And so Giovanni and Odie also become friends. That way, Odie can use Giovanni's gargoyle abilities as well. And he can fly around by himself to take care of it. That's actually the photo that I showed from the artwork in the book was an example showing them both in their gargoyle forms. So, they're going to go in and fight, and then they're like, well, what do Phoenica and Trixie do? They don't have those abilities. And so Odie spins up his friendship lines that are connected to everyone and uses gargoyle powers to put rocks along them so that everyone else can grab them. And basically, they're going to take down this s'mores dragon AT-AT style. I'm going with all these nerdy references today. You can't stop me. But, the fight begins, the crowd's fighting. Lorelai's just kind of watching for a bit, but then she joins in because she's like, I want to play with them. And they're calling me the villain, so maybe I can play fight as the villain. And so that's what she does. She joins her dragon in the fight, commanding it, and they're basically doing a whole play fight thing, and they're actually having a good time. Once again, for a sliver of a moment, it seems like everything is getting better and wounds are being healed between relationships. But then Molly gets hurt. Basically, cut through her bare hoodie onto her cheek, and Lorelai stops and remembers her epithet is genuinely dangerous, and it could get people hurt. And case in point, right then, because she lost her focus, the dragon topples the lone tower from the hovel, while Naven is still inside. So Lorelai races down into the rubble to try to find him, and she does find him, and he's basically taken shelter in a closet that is a recreation of one from their old home. And all those painful memories come flooding back. She is probably the one who started the fire. Basically, the fire department never found the source of the fire and the fire alarms never went off. So it's very likely, not even they're sure, but they're pretty convinced at this point with the evidence that's what happened, that Lorelai was inscribing in her sleep and accidentally started the fire that killed her mother. And that's actually, apparently that was the same night that Molly discovered her epithet powers of dumb. And it's because of Molly that Lorelai survived that night and didn't join her mother. It's awful. It's so tragic. No wonder she's messed up. If she's probably the one who killed her own mom. It's horrible. And that's why this whole time she's just been hiding in her bubbles. She's trying to stay away from her family, the family that she has left, because she doesn't want to hurt them again. But because she keeps creating these bubbles and hiding away in them, her epithet has just been getting stronger and stronger and stronger, and honestly harder to control because of how strong it is. Her trying to keep her family safe has just made the situation worse with her powers. Yeah, it's, again, like I said earlier, doesn't excuse the way she's treated Molly, but she has her own tragic backstory. And like I said with Odie, that makes characters more complex. But anyway, after that revelation, we see what's going on back outside with the big battle, because the group bands together and they finally defeat the dragon. And as they do, like punching through it like that artwork I showed had, the bubble also bursts as well. And everyone ends up, a little beat up and worn down. Molly especially is exhausted from using her epithet all day, but everyone is alive and everyone is back in the real world. And there you go. Everything is all good to go. But this is the time where, it's the wrap up. It's the last bit of the story, last chapter. It's time for all the characters to go their separate ways, right? Well, partially, because Giovanni, like I said earlier, declared war on Martin Blindef. And his first action is taking Molly. Like he said, the thing that is most valuable, his daughter. So Giovanni scoops up Molly and dashes out the door and just runs away. She's gone. He's gone with her. That's it. He just took her away. Now look, I know that this is technically kidnapping. But Child Protective Services are not doing their job. Giovanni had to do something. Naven didn't because, he has status. He has a company that needs him. He has all kinds of other stuff he's trying to deal with. He doesn't want to collapse everything that he's in charge of just to do this, because there's other people that rely on him, not just Molly. Giovanni, on the other hand, isn't even living at home anymore because, he's on the run from the cops and he has a fake name now. So he's fine with taking her. And honestly, I'm very happy with that. She had horrible living conditions there. It was just a miserable experience. She needed to get out of there. And it was like a whole joke, honestly. I feel like I saw in some of the comments also on the episodes of the show is, can Giovanni just adopt Molly? Because it seems like she'd have a better experience there than with her god-awful father. So basically that's what's happening. Big brother Giovanni is going to take care of Molly. But now that that's taken care of, there's still people just standing around the toy store after all that just happened. So Naven offers everyone, obviously the two girls, and also Naven has offered Odie a ride. It's because I have a limo. I can give you guys a ride. And obviously, the girls have homes to go back to, which they're very late for. Naven's going to have to vouch for the story that they give their parents. But Odie doesn't have anywhere to go. He ran away because of, the supreme leader that had harvested him. And so Naven says, hey, would you like a job? I have jobs that I can offer you. And so Naven actually gives Odie, a chance for a fresh start. He says, hey, and if it doesn't work out, I have other contacts that I can reach out to find something to help you get on your feet. Naven's just a good guy. Always good. But he is also a very late guy because they were in the bubble for a long time, and his chauffeur comes charging him and starts yelling at him and berating him. And I even thought it was weird when I reacted to it. A chauffeur yelling at someone like this who's technically their boss just seems really weird. But then it turns out that chauffeur is his wife. Apparently that's why she's able to talk to him like that, is because they love each other. And okay, so this opens up so many questions I have, because I noticed when I reacted to the audiobook previews that the art of the chauffeur looked a lot like the electric gremlin who works for the organization Bliss Ocean. And I now that, I'm not worried about spoilers for Epithet Erased, because this is all we have for Epithet Erased. I know Anime Campaign technically will have some spoilers. I'm still not reading anything from that because I want to wait for the actual Epithet Erased stories to come out. But basically, this woman, her name is apparently Yumta, according to the wiki. Never is said in the show or the book, so that's really interesting. I hope that comes up at some point. She is Naven's wife. What? That's genuinely, to me, like, the biggest twist of this book is the fact that not only is Naven married, that's his wife. But like I said, it opens up so many questions that I'm just like, I need to know these answers, but I'm not going to get any answers because there's no more story. Like, does Naven know about her connection to Bliss Ocean? She seemed like she had an electric epithet. Does Naven know that she has that, or has she kept it hidden? If he doesn't know about her connection to Bliss Ocean, is she just using him? If he does know about her connection, does he have his own connection to the organization? I need to know this. But there's no other stories here. Oh my gosh, that revelation, I feel like, is the biggest plot twist of this whole book. And I'm a lore head. I need to know more about what's going on. I cannot believe that that's actually a thing. But anyway, I digress. Before Naven leaves with, the people he's giving a ride to and his wife, still can't get over that, he stops to check on Lorelai, who is in her room, basically sulking, but also contemplating everything that just happened because she has a lot to think about. She has a lot to improve upon. And before he leaves, though, Naven does tell her, hey, check your pocket. And Lorelai's confused, but she checks her pocket, and there's a baseball in there. It's one of Vincent Murder's calling cards. And Giovanni has written a note on there and says, hey, I hope you can change one day. I know it didn't work out the way you wanted it to, but I still would love to have you on the team. It's just you have some things you need to work on. And the best part about that is not only is it a sweet message to say, hey, he genuinely does care about her and he wants her to be better, just like he's been trying to, help Molly be a better version of herself. He wants to help Lorelai be a better version of herself. He also signs it with his real name. There are literally only a few pages left in the book at this point. And this is the first time that Lorelai has known Giovanni's real name. And she doesn't even realize, she's like, wait a minute, who's Giovanni? I think that's a really funny joke, actually, that it took the entire book to get to that point. But anyway, speaking of Giovanni, he brought Molly all the way to his hideout in Crusher's treehouse. That's where he's been hiding because he can't go back home. The police are looking for him after the whole Redwood Run incident because he stupidly declared his name in front of Percy. But he takes her there, and it's actually so sweet. Apparently on the bus ride there, he's like, ask her, are you sure you're okay with me taking you here? Are you sure you're okay with that? He keeps asking her over and over again. And she's a little drowsy, but she's like, yeah, it's fine. It's fine. It's okay. And she basically just falls asleep immediately when she's laid down on an extra mattress that Crusher brought up to the treehouse. And that is the first night in years that Molly Blindef has had a full night's sleep. And she actually gets to rest for once. And even better, when she wakes up the next day after texting her friends like, yes, I'm okay. I'm fine. I know you guys are freaking out about this, especially Trixie, because, Trixie and Giovanni are cousins. So it's like, you've got to be kidding me. What has my stupid cousin done now? That whole thing. She's like, yeah, I'm fine. She heads down into Crusher's house where Giovanni and Crusher are waiting for her with a full gourmet feast of breakfast. There's bacon, there's eggs, there's pancakes, there's waffles, there's fruit juice. There's just a full banquet for her. The first full meal she's had in a long time. And she just cries. She's happy. She's sitting there with Giovanni on one side, Crusher on the other, people who actually care about her. And she's happy, finally. Okay, just when I thought, it's not possible for me to love Giovanni's character anymore, he does this. Like I said, it's technically illegal, but this is the best outcome for Molly. And honestly, it might end up doing her sister some good too, if Molly's going to actually be staying with Giovanni now, away from, her horrible, neglectful father. Lorelai is going to have to pick up some slack at the toy store, and that's going to give her, more of a sense of what Molly's been going through. So while Lorelai's, trying to contemplate everything and figure out, how to heal their relationship with her sister, she's going to be put in her sister's shoes a bit, which I think is going to be pretty good for her in the long run. So, and let's be honest, Martin's probably not going to even notice that Molly's gone. We literally started this series in the museum with him not realizing that he left his daughter behind. He's going to be fine. It's going to be Lorelai who's going to have the most impact to her life, probably, with Molly not being there. But again, like I said, it's probably going to be good for her. And also with this, with Giovanni taking Molly, as much as this feels like, oh, we just were introduced to Lorelai, she has a lot to learn still. She's just starting to have those cracks in her selfishness, and she needs to work on herself. This also, at the same time, feels like it's kind of the end of Molly's story. You know what I mean? Like, I did, when I watched the show, I was like, oh, I miss Molly when we went to the Redwood Run arc and everything like that. But at the same time, giving her this happy ending here, I think that works. It builds upon her character of becoming more self-confident from the museum arc. And now here, she actually gets, happy ending, surrounded by people who care about her, who want to take care of her. It's the best thing possible. And that's what I really love about this book, is that it really is, again, it focuses on both the blind deaf sisters, but while it's introducing us to the conflict for Lorelai, it feels like it's wrapping up stuff for Molly, which is really good. And I do wish we had, like, Molly, like I said, Molly's friends had more of an impact on that, like, individually, instead of just becoming just the collective Molly's friends for, like, all the major plot beats going forward in the story. But Molly gets her happy ending. I'm happy about that. Like, very, very happy about that. And I will say that with the story, I do wish there was a little bit more of the hint of the overarching narrative of this world. Like I said, there's a little bit there. Like, clearly the chauffeur is Yumta, who is Bliss Ocean's errand girl, the little electricity gremlin, and stuff like that. And now Naven might be connected to it somehow, if he even knows what his wife is up to. But it's like, yeah, that's pretty much it. It pretty much focuses on this. And honestly, on the other hand, like I just said, oh, I wish there was more connection. On the other hand, it's a self-contained story, pretty much. It's basically a bookend for Molly, and that works. I'm okay with that. Again, like I said, I'm a lore head. I love lore. I want to analyze and theorize, and this one definitely gave me more questions to chew on. But yeah, I'm okay. I'm okay with Molly's story ending here, and focusing on wrapping that up before, hopefully next time, we can get a little bit more into some of the juicy plot of this world. And because, there is a whole Mundi terrorist organization out there that we've been introduced to two of the characters from there. We have Zora and we have Yumta, but there's still two other members who we know nothing about. And hopefully we'll get a little bit more of that in whatever the story goes to next. So yeah, that is going to do it for this video. I know that the next projects for Epithet Erased that are in the works from Brendan Blaber are more books. I think the first ones that are going to be are novel adaptations of the museum arc and the Redwood Run arc, which is going to be expanding on like character backstory and stuff like that, and giving a lot more detail. I definitely plan to be reviewing those books when they come out, and hopefully there's going to be another audiobook preview like there was for Prison of Plastic, and I can do more reaction videos to it as well. I think that would be a ton of fun, even though I already know the story. Getting those extra little details about, like Mara and Indus would be really, really cool. Maybe even a little bit more about Sylvie. Probably not too much, but because it's really Mara and Indus for the museum arc, but that would be cool. Maybe it would go a little bit more into Zora's story when it does the Redwood Run arc. I did listen to Graded Cowboy. I didn't know there was going to be lore in it, or else I would have done a reaction to it. I thought it was just going to be another fun song, kind of like Graded Crime was, but Graded Cowboy actually had like Zora's backstory in it a bit, where apparently her parents were shot dead by bonsai blasters, and then she ended up with Bliss Ocean and everything, so maybe they go more into that in the novelization. I think he said that he's hoping to get all the books written by the end of the year, because it's those books and also an actual sequel to Prison of Plastic, which is whatever the next story arc is. I think he said he wants to get those all written, like done. Like publishing, is a whole other thing, but he's hoping to get them at least written by the end of the year, so I'm definitely going to be checking those out when they come out. But I have other Eabs Book Club videos to make. The next big one that I'm going to be working on in terms of like reading a bunch of stuff and planning a bunch of stuff out and writing a big script is going to be the first Hello Neighbor novel trilogy. I'm going to be getting into the book world of Hello Neighbor finally after playing the games and watching the show. So I'm going to be working on that. But before then, I'm probably going to have another Murder Drones graphic novel review that I'm going to end up doing, because they're going to have another issue of that probably come out. Hopefully those get better. But either way, I have plenty more of Eabs book clubs planned about different franchises that I follow. And I will be, of course, doing more indie animation reactions. I just reacted to recently the Art of Murder pilot. Hopefully there's going to be more of those because that was really good. And I've also started watching Glitch's second show, Sunset Paradise. And Glitch has a new show with a pilot coming out next month called Gameoverse, and I'm looking forward to that as well. So there's going to be plenty more indie coverage on this channel, and I'm looking forward to seeing what new stories are going to be told. But anyway, that's going to do it for this video. Hope you all enjoyed it. Please drop a like and comment down below if you did. Or subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll see you all on the next one. Bye, guys!